In just 47 seconds, a $2.8 million constitutional law degree became worthless. Kash Patel didn't expect the question. He stammered, deflected, then completely collapsed. Cameras captured every moment of panic. The Senate chamber froze in stunned silence. What did Senator Jeff Merkley ask that made the FBI director nominee's entire career implode live on national television? At exactly 2:17 p.m. on February 14, 2025, the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing was running behind schedule. Kash Patel sat like an investigator who had seen too many lies, but today he was the one being questioned. His confidence radiated across the mahogany chamber as he adjusted his navy tie and straightened the stack of prepared answers beside his microphone. Beside him, 3 legal advisors whispered final encouragements. The American flag pin on his lapel caught the harsh committee room lights. Behind him in the gallery, a who's who of Washington power brokers had assembled to witness what they expected to be a routine confirmation. Former Attorney General William Barr sat in the front row, having publicly endorsed Patel's nomination just days earlier. Heritage Foundation President Kevin Roberts exchanged confident nods with Trump advisor Stephen Miller. The scene looked like a conservative legal victory lap, until it didn't. Patel's preparation team had spent 3 weeks drilling him on every conceivable question about FBI operations, counterintelligence protocols, and administrative challenges. They had prepared detailed responses about budget allocations, personnel management, and strategic priorities. What they hadn't prepared him for was being tested on the basic legal knowledge that any law enforcement leader should possess as naturally as breathing. The irony was suffocating. Here was a man who had spent years criticizing FBI leadership for constitutional overreach, who had written memos accusing bureau officials of legal incompetence, who had positioned himself as the constitutional conservative who would restore legal integrity to federal law enforcement, and he couldn't answer elementary questions about the Constitution he claimed to champion. Senator Jeff Merkley entered the chamber with the measured stride of someone carrying explosive evidence. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his eyes held the sharp focus of a prosecutor about to spring a carefully planned trap. In his hands were 3 manila folders marked Constitutional Law Review and a single sheet of paper that would change everything. The first 2 hours had gone smoothly for Patel. Republican senators lobbed softball questions about his FBI experience and commitment to justice. He responded with practiced legal terminology, citing cases and precedents with the confidence of someone who had rehearsed every possible angle. His handlers in the gallery nodded approvingly. Fox News reporters typed furiously, already crafting headlines about his commanding performance. But Merkley was different. He didn't grandstand or pontificate. He simply opened his first folder and began reading from a document that made Patel's face shift from confidence to confusion in real time. "Mr. Patel," Merkley began, his voice cutting through the chamber's tension like a blade, "in your 2018 memo regarding surveillance authority, you wrote, and I quote, 'The Fourth Amendment permits warrantless searches when national security interests supersede individual privacy concerns. Is that correct?'" Patel's jaw clenched slightly. His legal advisors leaned forward. "This wasn't in their prep materials, Senator. That memo was classified and taken out of context." "Yes or no, Mr. Patel? Did you write those exact words?" Silence. 4 seconds of pure tension. Every camera in the room zoomed in on Patel's face as beads of sweat formed along his hairline. The national security context was complex. Merkley's voice remained deadly calm. "That's a yes. Now, Mr. Patel, can you tell this committee which Supreme Court case established that warrantless searches require probable cause and exigent circumstances?" The question hung in the air like a judicial landmine. Patel's confident demeanor cracked visibly. His hands began to tremble as he reached for his water glass. The legal advisors behind him exchanged worried glances. This was basic constitutional law, first-year law school material that any FBI director should know cold. "Senator, there are multiple precedents," Patel began, his voice noticeably. "I'm asking for the foundational case, Mr. Patel. The one every law student learns. The case that established Fourth Amendment warrant requirements." The chamber held its collective breath. CNN cameras captured every micro-expression as Patel's face drained of color. His mouth opened and closed wordlessly. The man who had written legal memos for Congress, who claimed expertise in constitutional law, who wanted to lead the FBI, couldn't answer the most basic question in criminal procedure. "Map v. Ohio," whispered one of his advisors, barely audible. But Merkley heard it. "Did your advisor just provide you with the answer, Mr. Patel?" The room erupted. Democratic senators looked stunned. Republican senators shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Even the stenographer stopped typing momentarily. Patel's knuckles went white as he gripped the table edge. "Senator, this is clearly an ambush," Patel snapped, his composure completely shattered. "Knowing the Constitution isn't an ambush, Mr. Patel? It's a job requirement." Merkley opened his second folder. "Let's try another. In your 2020 analysis of surveillance protocols, you argued that metadata collection doesn't constitute a search under the Fourth Amendment. Which Supreme Court case contradicts your position?" Again, silence. Patel looked desperately at his legal team, but they were now staring at their phones, probably calculating how quickly they could distance themselves from this disaster. "I don't see how this line of questioning—" "Carpenter v. United States, 2018, Merkley stated flatly. "A case decided 2 years before you wrote your memo. Did you not research current precedent before making legal recommendations to Congress?" Twitter exploded in real time. Patel fails began trending within minutes. Legal experts watching the hearing started posting clips with commentary, like, "This is embarrassing for any lawyer, let alone an FBI director nominee." CNN broke into regular programming. Fox News, notably, did not. Merkley wasn't finished. He opened the third folder with surgical precision. "Mr. Patel, in your confirmation materials, you claim to be an expert in FISA law. Can you tell this committee what the acronym FISA stands for?" It was such a basic question that several people in the gallery actually laughed nervously. FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, was central to everything Patel claimed to know about national security law. Patel's response was barely a whisper. "Foreign intelligence, surveillance, authority." "No, Mr. Patel. It's Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. You got the acronym wrong." Merkley's voice carried the weight of absolute finality. "You've misunderstood basic constitutional law, ignored Supreme Court precedent, and now you've incorrectly identified the law you claim to be an expert in." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause in respect for the complete destruction of a political career happening in real time. Court reporters in the back row exchanged stunned glances. They had covered hundreds of confirmation hearings, but nothing quite like this public disintegration of professional credibility. The C-SPAN cameras captured every detail with unforgiving clarity. Patel's hands shook as he reached for his briefing notes, desperately searching for an escape route that didn't exist. His lead advisor, former White House counsel Pat Cipollone, buried his face in his hands. The optics were catastrophic, and in Washington, perception often mattered more than reality. At exactly 3:04 p.m., 47 seconds after Merkley's final question, Senator Lindsey Graham's phone rang. The caller ID showed White House. Within minutes, 3 more Republican senators received similar calls. The message was consistent: we need to discuss Patel's viability. By 4:30 p.m., Patel's confirmation vote was indefinitely postponed. By 6:00 p.m., his legal advisors had resigned. By 8:00 p.m., Trump's inner circle was floating alternative FBI director candidate. The man who had positioned himself as a constitutional scholar, who had written legal memos shaping national security policy, who had claimed the expertise to lead America's premier law enforcement agency, had been undone by questions any first-year law student could answer. But the damage was still spreading. In the committee anteroom, Patel's wife watched the hearing on a small television screen, her face buried in her hands as reporters surrounded her, asking for comment. She had warned him about this moment. "Kash, you're not ready," she had whispered the night before. "These aren't political games. These are real legal questions." He had dismissed her concerns with the same arrogance that now lay shattered across the Senate floor. Back in the hearing room, Merkley wasn't done delivering the knockout blow. He pulled out a final document, a law school transcript that someone had leaked to his office just hours before the hearing. The transcript showed Patel had barely passed constitutional law with a C-, requiring a summer remedial course to graduate. "Mr. Patel, given your academic struggles with constitutional law, why didn't you disclose this to the committee during your preparation materials?" Merkley's voice carried the weight of absolute moral authority. Patel's remaining composure evaporated entirely. His face flushed red, with a mixture of embarrassment and rage. "That's a private academic record. How did you—" "Public officials don't get to hide their qualifications, Mr. Patel. Especially not when they're asking to lead an agency that depends on constitutional expertise." The gallery behind Patel emptied as his supporters quietly slipped out, unwilling to be photographed witnessing this career assassination. Former colleagues who had vouched for his expertise were already calling their offices, demanding their endorsement letters be withdrawn. The Federalist Society, which had initially praised his nomination, issued a statement within the hour expressing concerns about constitutional preparedness. What made the moment even more devastating was the contrast with previous FBI director confirmations. James Comey had delivered a masterclass on constitutional law during his hearing. Christopher Wray had cited cases from memory and engaged in sophisticated legal discussions with senators from both parties. Patel couldn't even remember basic acronyms. Senator Ted Cruz, normally a fierce Trump ally, was seen shaking his head and whispering to colleagues. "This is indefensible," he was overheard saying. "We can't put someone in charge of the FBI who doesn't understand the Fourth Amendment." Even the most partisan Republican senators recognized that constitutional ignorance wasn't a matter of political preference, it was a matter of basic qualification. The hearing's aftermath played out like a slow-motion political execution. Legal commentators on every network dissected Patel's failures with surgical precision. Harvard law professor Lawrence Tribe tweeted, "I've seen law students fail constitutional law exams with more dignity than this." Former Attorney General Eric Holder called the performance embarrassing to the legal profession. Within 6 hours, internal GOP polling showed that Patel's confirmation would cost Republican senators significant credibility with educated suburban voters, a demographic they desperately needed. The political calculus was brutal, but clear. Supporting constitutional ignorance was a luxury they couldn't afford. By midnight, Patel's own legal team had abandoned him. His prep coach, a former Supreme Court clerk who had charged $50,000 to prepare him for exactly these questions, publicly resigned and refunded the fee. "I can't teach someone constitutional law in 3 weeks who should have learned it in law school," he told reporters outside the Russell Senate building. The harsh fluorescent lights cast deep shadows across his face as he spoke. Even legal mercenaries had standards, and Patel had somehow fallen below them. The security detail assigned to Patel quietly informed him that his FBI escort privileges had been revoked pending the Confirmation Committee's formal recommendation. He would drive himself home that night, alone with the wreckage of ambitions built on a foundation of legal ignorance. Sometimes the most devastating political moments aren't about scandals or corruption. Sometimes they're about basic competence. In 47 seconds, Jeff Merkley didn't just expose Patel's legal ignorance. He revealed that the man seeking to lead the FBI didn't understand the constitutional foundations of American justice. What happens when someone who claims expertise can't demonstrate basic knowledge? If legal scholarship can't survive fundamental questions, was it ever real scholarship at all? If this constitutional catastrophe shocked you, don't just watch. Like, share, and subscribe to Truth Spotlight, where legal facades get exposed and qualifications get fact-checked. Hit the bell, the next nominee might know even less about the law. What would you ask an FBI director nominee? Drop your constitutional law questions below